So welcome to another war game review from theplayers8.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're taking a look at a game called Sparta from Plague Island Games.
It's actually Sparta, Struggle for Greece from Plague Island Games, but
it doesn't say
appear.
that on
You're
the
right.
box.
This is a prototype.
Yes.
So yes, you are correct, sir.
This is a preview. This was a prototype copy of this upcoming game that's designed by Chris Van Beurden, put out, like I said, by Plague Island Games. They sent this to us to do kind of a preview for an upcoming Kickstarter campaign. If you're watching this, you're probably on the Kickstarter campaign, so welcome.
And it's a really nice prototype.
Yes.
And I think 2 Minutes to Midnight, their other effort, also had a very nice prototype. The final version was very nicely produced.
And we appreciate that because, you know, we don't do a lot of these kind of previews, the prototypes, but when they do, it's much easier if it is a very nice, accessible, pretty much almost finished rulebook kind of a thing. So anyway, Chris Van Beurden has done a couple other games of his that we've played. This kind of follows in that vein in that it is a 1 to 2 player card-driven game. This is we played it 2-player, obviously. This is a 2-player card-driven game. There is a solo option. There's like a whole solo card that you can use with some extra rules for that.
They gave us 2 of the solo cards, which is interesting.
Very nice.
We could play it together solo.
Yes.
Which actually might not be bad.
But, you know, of the other Peloponnesian War games that I played, one's a solitaire game and the other ones are like not that manageable. So there's an option for it. That might be something you're interested in, but we can't speak to that because we've not used it yet.
Right. It's not who we are.
No.
We play 2-player war games generally together, and
Yes. One of the nice parts of this game, and I know some other games have it, is that this is, I'm not going to say it's 2 games in one, but it has 2 very large and very different scenarios in it.
Yes.
Some of them, and it changes the cards that you have in the game, it changes the setups that you have, but it's still, both of them are 6 turns long and have a similar concepts to them.
Well, the other scenario that we didn't play, it introduces, I think, the Theban, kind of the Theban faction as well.
So, yeah, the first one, it's the Athenians against the Spartans.
Classic Peloponnesian War.
Exactly what you would expect. The second one, it's the Theban faction. You have a Theban played card. You don't even use the blue Athenian one. And then, but it's still fighting against the Spartans.
Yeah.
So
we didn't play that other.
No.
I mean, we spent about 4.5, 5 hours on this trying to learn, digest, understand, played through, the first scenario, and I would love to be able to play the other one, but we're not.
We just haven't got that yet
to do that.
But so I don't know what the playtime says in the box, or if you know that, but.
I don't.
When we played, like you said, we played for probably, about 4 hours of like playtime.
And that's learning, setting up,
differentiating
what the different components are. So a lot of that time I felt like was wasted time because we weren't totally 100% prepared.
It wasn't playtime. It was a lot of pickup and a lot of us talking about, hey, I've got this card that has this thing on it.
Yep.
What does that do? And I'm like, oh, it triggers this, which triggers this.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things to note about this game. This game is quite deep.
There's no doubt.
Things considered.
This is I think it's a very cool card-driven game with a lot of depth.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of unique and interesting concepts that kind of merge together. Ultimately, it's an area control card-driven game, right? It's not unique in that way. It's unique in the way battles work. There's some battle cards. There's some allies that you're trying to control that don't necessarily help you in the area control contest. But without them, you don't have extra forces in the land battles. You don't. Some of them, Sicily, for example, you gain a lot of. I'm sorry, not Sicily. What's the name? I can't read a couple of them. Thrace, you get guys, but you also get money.
Yes.
Right? So it's a combination, and without those, it's very hard to wage successful battles and win.
And those don't help you with control of regions, which is invariably how you win the game.
But ultimately, that's what you're doing.
But they open paths to help you to do that
Yep.
elsewhere. So there's a lot of neat parts in this. But yeah, I'm controlling points within a colored region to gain control of that region. Mm-hmm. That region gives me a bonus to help me wage my war. The end of turn 6, your victory is how many regions do you control?
Yes.
Peloponnesian War is a land-based, like a territory-based war. Mm-hmm. That's what this is. You're trying to control as much of the board as you can. And you do that by placing influence out, like you can do in a lot of other CDGs.
Well, but it is very different than a lot of other CDGs. There is no mechanism, and this was something we continue talking about. I can't discard a card to just throw an influence somewhere.
No.
A lot of the cards are very specific. So, for instance, one of the allies, Crete, you can only influence that with a couple of cards. If those cards come up in my hand, I'm going to own Crete. You're never going to have a chance.
Don't have access to it. There's no way for me to touch that.
And that's a little bit of randomness, but it also is part of what a card game is.
Yes.
You're not going to have access to every single card, every single turn, or even in an entire game. But a lot of the control of these areas, there are metropolises, megalopolises. I can't remember what the ones were called.
It was like villages or
something
like towns,
like that.
And then
a lot of them are either named on cards, some of the bigger ones, or it's you can put an influence in one of the areas in Boeotia, right? So you have to make a choice. Okay, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
How am I going to build up a presence? Or you're also trying to, like you mentioned, those connections, because a land force can't move and get into a battle halfway across the world.
Yes.
They've got to have a route that connects to your capital city or a friendly ally. I think the other one was.
Or a colony, or a controlled megapolis. So it's neat because, yes, it's like I place my influence. Oh, I've got enough to control the area, right? I place one and it removes your one, right? The very standard concept there.
Yes, that does happen. Yes.
Or it's like, oh, I can move my army, and my army's going to eventually affect control of an area after a long siege. So there are things that you can be familiar with, but it's the interplay between those two where there's the real kind of meat and the depth to the game.
Well, and what you're really going to find the most satisfaction out of, I think, after playing this game several times, you're going to start to understand, okay, I can get into this region now with this card, I got to take that opportunity. Or I can go ahead and sacrifice this to do something else. I mean, you can't really... A lot of the cards, though, had like, do this if you have a favor to spend. Right? That's like a resource.
Or if you don't, do this.
Yeah, and it was lesser or it wasn't as good. So this is a game that over multiple plays, you're literally going to start to understand the strategies and the concepts, and you're really going to get into the Peloponnesian War and understand, okay, there's a reason they went here. There's a reason that Sicily was fought over tooth and nail, because it was basically the grain or breadbasket of the Med. And it gives you a ton of money
and it's represented by money.
Right.
That's the thing I think I like and wish to explore more about this is, now that I've played it, I'm like, oh, this region's important because it does this for battle resources, which is important to do this other thing. Or, ooh, I had lots of money because I control Chaldis and Hellespont and Sicily. And lots of money enables me to conduct as many sieges as I wish, basically, and to mobilize lots of forces. So I could go out and do it that way.
It was interesting because I think in multiple turns you had at least 2 sieges going quite often.
And you got to fund those.
Well, it costs 2 per die roll.
Yeah.
And you're not that great at sieges because you didn't have some of the forces and you didn't have a lot of control over where you were sieging. So you were rolling like 1 die.
Yeah.
It's potential. I mean, you can roll up to 3 dice. And all you have to do to score a hit is roll 4, 5, or a 6 on a 6-sider.
Well, and so it's custom dice in the Kickstarter as well.
Yeah, so. You're right. So that's going to be a change because we kept saying, oh, what's a blank? It's a 1, 2, or a 3. a blank on the dice are going to be a 1, 2, or a 3 a result.
A 2 or a 3
basically.
is a blank, a 1 is a failure.
Is a failure, and you're
a
going to
4,
lose.
5, or a 6 is a success. Yeah.
But that was interesting. The access to money, very important. But as the Spartans, I felt like my military might was on display.
Oh, it was significant.
I was able to get some of the extra guys, and I had the advantage in battles almost. I think I never didn't have the advantage. You had some cool event battle cards that really changed the playing field, which was unique and interesting. It didn't feel good. There was a little bit of that gotcha. Yeah, but that's okay.
I had to play the battle cards to
get new ones.
Swing the battle in my favor.
Yeah,
because it's very fixed. You know, in this day and age, you had your army. It consisted of this many guys, and they were this well trained.
Yeah,
and like. That's it. You were going up against someone who was inferior. Mm-hmm. It was so rare that you had like all of these different bits and pieces and force-changing things at this scale in this time period. So it's like, yeah, the stronger army is going to win every time, unless you have like, ooh, I've got my cool little thing that's like...
Which represents a brilliant stroke or a really strategic move or even sometimes some luck.
But and without those, though, stronger force wins every time.
Yeah, for the most part.
Really, that's interesting. Not a lot of war games do that. They almost always have a die roll that might be heavily skewed, but there's a chance. In this one, if you don't have the cards, that's it. You'll lose every time.
And that is very interesting. And I didn't even feel like that was a bad thing, that deterministic concept.
No.
More often than not, the Ameritrash player in me wants to roll a ton of dice.
Yes.
I love it when I'm rolling 3 and 4 dice and I need 6s to hit, and oh, you know what? I rolled a 6, I hit. That's not the way this is in this game. And now Sieges, you do. You roll 1 to 3 dice, and you're hoping to get a 4, 5, or a 6. But that deterministic concept did not bother me in this game. It really didn't.
If you'd been on the other side of it, do you think it would have bothered you?
No, because I knew, and I will say this, and I don't know if you noticed when we play a lot of games, we played a deck builder a couple of weeks ago. If there are battle cards, I'm going for them because I know how swingy those things can be.
And in this game, they can be very powerful.
And I think I almost had a card advantage on you almost every time. So I was already winning the battles, but I was able to leverage that win into something greater, gain a couple of favors. Or one of the ones that I really thought was cool was where I put an influence. They called it an envoy, a lesser envoy, out in an area near the battle. Man, that was powerful because it helped me get over here near Persia in the Hellespont and be competitive there. So you asked me, would I have sat on the other side and felt bad about that?
If you're permanently in the negative, you have to get cards to do it.
I guess, but I also would say I know you didn't spend that much time trying to get those. You were doing other things.
I never had opportunities to get them outside of the free draw.
You didn't get some of the better...
It's an interesting discussion to have, I think. But it was also, in this game and in this type of game, I didn't mind it, even though I was on the back end of that, because what it did is it forced you to go after different regions to get the battle advantages by getting the allies and getting the region control that would then get the troops onto your side.
Yeah.
It had a purpose. We play some games where deterministic and it's like that's your mode of resolution. Great. Yeah. It's fairly meaningless and it's just harsh. In this one, it forced you, it was like, yo dog, you're going to lose every single one unless, you have to go for Crete. You have to go for... Italia. You have to go
because they give you
Macedon.
A lot of forces,
and the forces are a zero-sum game.
Persia was really
nice. I
get
get them, but I take them from you.
Yep.
And so then that swing will change. That was something I enjoyed in this game.
Yeah.
Which
I would agree.
Normally I'd be a little bit wary of that, but because it was so easy to be like, okay, cool, I'm going to lose every battle because I'm in the negative in the battle advantage.
Sure.
But that focuses my strategy. And that also kind of points to you of like, oh, got to defend these as well. Because, a loss of one of those areas then totally changes the face of the game, which was very interesting to play with.
And there's going to be a time, I think, in the game where that is going to switch fairly regularly. Because ultimately, what wins you the game is area control.
Yes.
Going after the regions, not the allies. The allies I think are very important early on to build your lead, to build your forces, to build your advantage. But in this game, you won, right? You had the majority of the control of the major areas, even though Sparta took Athens, which...
Yes, at the very end.
How many times did I go after that? Like
a few.
2 or 3.
Yes.
The way the combat rules work are also very interesting. Once you are done with a combat, all of your forces are spent and they go back.
Yes.
So your guys don't stay on the board and just continue a campaign. They have to return, and that's somewhat a time scale thing.
Yeah.
But also a supply thing and a manpower thing.
And that aspect of it felt quite similar to some of the other Peloponnesian War games that I've played.
I know you mentioned that a lot as we were playing.
Yeah, but because to me, at least in the games that I've played that cover this topic, the hallmark of this is that you never have like permanent forces and garrisons out.
Yeah.
It's always like...
That's not what this is about. Yeah.
I raise an army and I go, and I do a thing.
Yeah.
Now, how that plays out is different in every single game, but that's and then they kind of flame out and they go home. Because,
and that's kind of a theme in Peloponnesian War games.
It's
Pericles. It's Pericles is a little different, but
it's not. It's got some of those concepts to it.
Yeah.
But that to me is something that was very apparent in this, and I kind of know that, hey, if I'm playing a Peloponnesian War game, that's probably one of the things that I should kind of look to expect. Your forces are not fickle, but there's not as much permanence as you find in almost every other war game that you're ever going to play out there.
Yeah.
And it's a hallmark of a Peloponnesian War game. In this, it was... the order in which you deploy your guys that you mobilized last turn.
Yep.
So you have to mobilize to be able to deploy them on your next card play, and then they have to go out, and then you have to get to a space that you could raid, and then on your next turn after that, you conduct the raid, and then if you wish, you can start a siege.
Yeah.
So from your decision point of buying a guy to actually starting and conducting a siege is 3 turns. Like a hand of cards is 6 cards long.
Yeah.
So you have to constantly have this rotation of guys constantly going out, doing that, getting them back, having one guy this turn, start the next guy. So there's always one guy going. It's very neat.
And that's why those cards in the deck that allowed you, in essence, to do all 3 of those things in one turn.
Powerful.
There were 2 of those cards. I think I got a lot of them.
I had one time, and it was very strong.
And those are really key and important. But you've got to use those and be prepared and get things done.
Because they're very expensive as well.
They're very expensive, but you got to get it done while you've got the opportunity. Take advantage of that and then build on that next turn.
And then after you've done all that, you've got to have the funds to do all of the sieges.
Oh, yeah, and that's the hard part.
So then the control of the money regions is very important. But
I felt a little
intense.
bit of pressure with money. I felt a little pressure because I really went for the forces first. I think had I to do it again, I might have gone for one more money place, because I felt like the money was so very important. Once like you said, to pay the price of those sieges, and then to do things like build your naval forces up, and I mean you have to, and to activate a guy to mobilize him, to get him ready to go out. It costs 3 talents, and you got to have somewhere between 10 and 14 talents a turn to really be effective. More often than not, I had 9 or 10. So I was right on the cusp. So I think I would do some things differently.
Yeah.
I think I did some things well strategically. The other thing I really liked about the combat was those leader, and their tiles, right? Yes. I don't know what they're going to be like in the final game, but everybody kind of had a set of basic leaders. Some of them didn't have any abilities
you
at
had
all.
like your kind of generic ones that would just keep coming back every time.
Like this one said, if killed, returns to play next turn on regular side. But that means he's just never going to go out of the game. Why? Because he's so important. This one, the Navarre, gives you an extra battle strength in sea battles. But having these guys and trying to get them experienced, where you win a battle and then you roll a die, hoping to roll high so that you can flip him over.
And it's a 50-50.
It's 1 to 3 is a nothing.
Well,
1 is a die.
1 is your leader dies.
And that happened to you 3 times, I think.
3 of my leaders died on their fate checks, which is astronomically low odds for that to have happened.
And I will say this, I had a cool, was it a battle card that made you roll 2 dice, and I got to choose which of your results.
And I rolled a 1 on those.
And you rolled a 1, but you rolled a 5 or a 6 on the other one, and I'm like, nope, you're taking that 1.
Yeah.
You're going to die.
I rolled nat 1s on like every other leader check I had to make. It was great. Not a single one of my leaders survived.
But these leaders flipping over to their experience side.
All of a sudden, they're incredible.
Well, and they made a huge difference. Near the end of the game, I think if I had one more good round, I had 4 good leaders that I think were making a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I might have been able to put a push together. I only needed, you had 6 territories, I had 5.
Yeah.
So we were right on top, right? Isn't that what you had?
Yes.
We were right on top of each other. It wasn't like you had 8 and I had 3. You know, it was 6 to 5. And I felt like there was still some areas out there that we were battling over.
Yes.
Some of these, Thessaly and Chaldicee, they were very close to switching one way or the other. So anyway, loved these leaders. I thought that was a very nice addition. And I think early in the game I was a little skeptical because I was like, these leaders kind of suck. But then they got
all of
better.
Them died. I wouldn't.
Well, I even killed. Didn't I kill your?
You just killed Pericles with a card.
So that was a little swingy, but loved those. There's a lot to like in this game. I enjoyed it. I like Chris Van Burden's style. We just played Barbarians at the Gates.
Yep.
Loved it. That one felt much more like a war game. This one felt a little more like an area control card game, which is...
Yes.
But like you said, it felt Peloponnesian War-like.
Yeah,
it really did.
You know, I've played the Peloponnesian War, which is a solitaire Mark Herman game.
From GMT.
And that is very much a game of having a death stack and just waltzing across the map, raiding and burning everything.
Yep.
And then they're kind of done.
Yep.
And then you do it all over again.
Yeah.
That's all you do in that game.
Well, and the weird thing about that game, too, is you flip sides.
Yes.
Right?
Because you burn and pillage everything, and then you flip to the losing side.
Yeah, it's
so then
so
you're like,
interesting.
Oh, I have to undo what I did.
Yeah,
and then we played Pericles a few times.
Yep.
That one's a little bit different. I really like the focus of that one.
It feels a lot more like a war game, but there's still some of that where you're trying to infiltrate territories and get in there and
the very specific areas up in Thrace, down in Sicily, being extremely important for supply or talents in this game. And then I played Hellenus, which is a block war game.
I didn't play that
but
one.
It's very similar kind of thing where it's like, oh, I've got sieges, and it's the end of the turn. And here you had to kind of like, you could keep sieges going. In that one, it was like you had to pay a lot of money to keep them out. Otherwise, they'd just go home because it was winter. But it was a lot of them have a similar type of feel to them.
Yeah.
Whilst being very, very different in style. And so this felt kind of right up. I was very comfortable with my very basic knowledge of the Peloponnesian War walking into this game because of that prior experience, which was nice.
Yeah. A lot to like here. I really enjoyed this.
Yes. So, Sparta from Plague Island Games. Once again, you're probably already on the Kickstarter anyway. So, check this out if there's something you're interested in. We've played their previous game, 2 Minutes to Midnight. This shares a lot in common with that from a graphic design standpoint. Except this game has extremely nice card artwork.
Well, the backs of the cards are just, these battle cards are just literally phenomenal.
The artwork on the cards, the main action cards, beautiful.
Very nice.
More of that.
And this is just a prototype. I'm sure they're still gonna make some changes.
You know, little trireme miniatures and different bits and pieces on the board. You know,
the minis are really nice. And maybe we should just
that'll
take
all be on here.
Some still frames of this because we're not necessarily going to show you how the game works because there's going to be videos
it's on the Kickstarter. Please watch.
We're just trying to help you understand what it feels like, other games that we think it doesn't mimic, but it follows in other patterns.
Like I played this and it felt like a Peloponnesian War game. I knew what I was getting myself into. It has a little bit of crunch because of that, because I think to model this specific theatre in ancients requires that, but it has it. You know, you've got these favor tokens, which you can gain from winning a combat or
certain cards.
Yeah, different bits and pieces.
The Athenians get one every turn, which I thought was interesting.
They're, you know, the Acropolis and all that, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, you know, there's no one specific thing you do with that. But you can use them to trigger a lot of secondary effects in cards.
Yeah.
Or you might be forced to throw them away with a card play that someone else does on you.
Yep.
Because this is a game also where the events happen. I might have to play a card, it might hose myself. I have to play a card, it might hose you. There's no ops points in this. It's just you do the event. Unless you toss away 2, which is extremely expensive. Favors. Which you toss that and it negates any event and you can just throw it away.
Yeah.
If it's something that's very deadly to you, but I don't know, having that many favors on hand, you have to have won combats and saved them, basically.
I actually had 3 at one time and I'd kind of saved them up over 2 turns, but you don't have enough to throw them away on getting rid of a card. So you got to kind of just grin and bear it. And I like that about card-driven games. When events go off like that, it's part of the fun. It's just part of the fun. It happens
and you move on. So I had an enjoyable time with this game. I do feel like it's something that, you know, if you're here, you're already checking it out. Have a good look at this. I'm very excited to see what the final production comes out like and all of the different extras and things. They've said they're going to do custom dice. And
I love custom dice.
And, you know, the little miniatures are really nice. These are obviously little prototype ones, but, you know, they're going to make them in soft plastic.
Well, and they're brittle.
Well,
but they're not going to be brittle.
No, this is 3D printed resin, just as a prototype. You're getting,
they look really great.
Nice soft plastic. Well, and it's not the tiny little midgy ones from Cyclades where it's like sad.
Well, and their spears are all they're
just sad.
Over.
These
very nice.
Were very nice to play. But it's very nice to have out on the board.
And multiple sculpts. You know, we each had multiple sculpts.
Yeah, so they were all different. That was great too. So yes. I had a really good time playing this.
I would play this again immediately. I'd be a lot better, I think.
Oh, yes.
And do a lot of things differently, and I think that's one of its strong points. You're not gonna play this 1 or 2 times. You're gonna keep playing it until you really get some things figured out.
And then you're gonna play the Theban War scenario, and you're gonna do
a whole new
experience
as well. And then you're gonna flip over and you're gonna play the Athenians in the scenario we played, and you're gonna be the Spartans. It's a different feel.
Very different.
There's not asymmetry in the way that we think of asymmetry, but the location, where I am, where you are, what allies are nearby, what regions give, that's different. It's very different.
Yes.
So, a lot to like here.
So,
a lot to like.
Sparta from Plague Island Games. Check it out if it's something you might be interested in. But we appreciate you very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander from PlayersAid.com.
And I'm Grant.